The HOA sent me a formal notice telling me to lower my roof line or move my entire house, because, and I am not making this up, my roof's shadow was killing my neighbor's petunias. I solved the problem by buying 4 computer-controlled mirrors and aiming the sun back at her yard. What followed was a suburban war that involved cameras cops, a city inspector, and a for sale sign on her lawn. I'm Jake Miller. My wife, Olivia, and I live in the Pines cookie-cutter lawns, tasteful porch lights, HOA meetings with stale donuts and PowerPoints. My house has been where it is for 30 years. My trees, my siding, my roof, they are not new, they are not dramatic. One Saturday morning, Linda Carter, clipboard in hand and a phone full of graphs, stood on my stoop and treated me like I'd committed a felony. From 2:04 to 4:18 every day, she said, tapping the spreadsheet she'd printed at home, "Your roof completely blocks the sunlight on my petunia bed. They need full sun. This is a violation of my right to enjoy my property." She did not smile. She did not joke. She had a precision I reserve for paying bills and arranging fantasy football trades. I told her earnestly that houses cast shadows, that's physics, not malice. She had an answer: either lower my roof or move the house back 15 feet. She held up 2 fingers like she was presenting menu options. Lower the roof, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Move the house, $500,000 if you like dramatic TV montages of Victorian homes rolling down the road. She left a voicemail for the HOA and walked away with the measured righteousness of someone who believes clipboards are a form of law. Margaret Ellis, the HOA president, called within 48 hours. "We need a decision," she said, voice warm and official. "The board is concerned about neighborhood aesthetic and resident complaints." Translation: Linda's complaint had teeth. Suddenly, I found myself reading bylaws at midnight, learning that the HOA could issue fines, write letters, escalate to city code, and that community governance loves the sound of its own rules. For a minute, I did what a sensible person does: panic. I ran numbers. I called contractors. Every estimate ended the same way, with me coughing up mortgage money for someone else's garden. I sat in my kitchen, coffee gone cold, feeling smaller than a misfiled document. It's a weird feeling, being told you're a problem when all you want is to keep your house. I thought about giving in, about the quiet relief of paying to make someone stop yelling. I thought about moving. I even imagined selling the place and starting over, far from hedges and clipboard queens. But that was the dark minute, the one where the story could have ended. I almost let it. Then Olivia, who has a much lower tolerance for injustice after I'd once tried to fix a shelf and nearly knocked our bathroom mirror off the wall, said one line that changed everything. "If she wants sunlight, give her sunlight." I laughed at first, the way you laugh when someone says something absurd and you can taste the trouble. Then I started looking things up. There's a difference between being petty and being strategic. I found out about heliostats, motorized mirrors that track the sun and reflect it where you want. They're used for solar power towers and daylighting in museums. They are not in the HOA's bylaws. The municipal code that bans light pollution talked about stadium lights and floodlights. It said nothing about redirecting natural sunlight during the day. That, more than anything, felt like permission. It felt like a loophole the size of a full-grown oak. I called a company called Sunright Architectural Solutions. Gary Ramos, though I eventually learned it was Ethan on the phone, came over with a tablet and a calm, exasperated look like he'd been pitched Stranger Things. He did math in front of me, the kind of trig my high school self forgot, but my phone didn't. "We can do an array," he said. 4 panels, dual-axis tracking. We'll make an app. You'll schedule it. You'll have a safe mode panic switch." He hesitated when I said I wanted it pointed right at Linda's petunias. He didn't like the word target, but he said yes. Professionals have a way of moralizing in bolts and brackets. Install day was one of the most surreal mornings of my life. A truck with Sunright on the side pulled up, and 3 men in blue polos unloaded something that looked like a small NASA payload. Linda came out like she'd been summoned by the clanging of scaffolding visor on lips-pursed clipboard at the ready. She walked up to me, hopeful, as if I had agreed to cut my house in half. "You're lowering it, right?" she asked. I smiled, benevolent, cruel, ridiculous, and said, "No, Linda, I'm giving you more sun." They finished at dusk. The mirrors sat on my roof like 4 silent promises. Gary handed me a phone and an app called Aperture OS. There was a big red panic button and a targeting screen with a little red rectangle mapped over Linda's flower bed, 8 by 12 feet per her specs. "You can nudge it," he said, "but please don't focus it." He tried to say it lightly. I tried to laugh. The first day I turned it on, Olivia, and I watched from the kitchen while the mirrors whirred a soft mechanical choir, and then a rectangle of light cleaved into Linda's yard. It was ridiculous. It was obscene. It was perfect. The petunias for about 2 seconds looked like heaven had been photocopied onto her lawn. Then the blinds slammed. Then a window. Then the rumble of a police cruiser. The officer who came had seen a lot of suburban weirdness, but not this. I explained how Linda came to me spreadsheets and demands. I explained that I'd researched the code. I showed him the permit from Sunright. He put on sunglasses and peered at the light. He said the words that felt like the first true victory. "I can't find anything illegal about this." He sighed, like he had to tell me multiple times because it sounded too small to be true. "It's petty," he said. "It's obnoxious, but it's not a crime." Linda escalated. She filmed, she called, she posted, she tacked outrage to her front door like bunting. She bought an umbrella so large and neon that it looked like a carnival parachute and sat under it during the scheduled sun hours as if she were camping her own injustice. I nudged the beam 2 degrees. She moved. I nudged back. It became a ridiculous dance. Her umbrella, my light, her tarp, my adjustment. She tried a blue plastic tarp one day. By the end of the week, the tarp had curled at the edges and looked a little singed. I felt guilty for a second, then I reminded myself that she started this by demanding I alter my house. The city inspector Samuel Harris came wearing a beige polo and a clipboard and an even-tempered face. He had the kind of job that makes you want to do the right thing, whether you like it or not. We paged through permits. Sunright's paperwork was clean. The code's wording was blunt. He watched the test run, he put on his sunglasses, he stood on the lawn, he scribbled on his clipboard, and then, very carefully, he signed a form that said the installation was within code. It was the strangest compliment, the most passive-aggressive, brilliant piece of engineering I've seen in 20 years of enforcement, he told me. He gave me a copy and left. Margaret had a meeting with the HOA and came back with frowns and polite words. There was no clause to make me take it down. Linda, who'd marshaled signatures and friends and YouTube rage, found herself standing on a porch while neighbors peered over their fences, and the worst social sanction of all, no one took her side. The momentum shifted. Where she'd once been loud and organized, she became the person with the perpetual scowl. People stopped offering help carrying her trash cans. A for sale sign appeared on her lawn a month later, small, polite, insistent. There was a moment after the inspector left when I could have turned the system off and walked away. The thrill of winning sat in my chest like a bright, guilty coin. But this isn't a story about petty triumph. This is a story about what happens when someone with rules decides their will is law. I shut the app down the night the for sale sign went up. I hit the big red panic button one last time. The mirrors tilted to the sky. The light went away. My house cast its old, boring shadow. Linda moved out 2 weeks later. The HOA updated their complaint procedures. Margaret stayed HOA president, but she no longer called me the first thing in the morning. My neighbors waved again, some awkwardly, some with new stories. The mirrors stayed on the roof for a while, a monument to an argument that might have been avoided if someone had knocked on a door and watered a plant. I learned a lot of things. I learned that bylaws can be blind to the ridiculous. I learned that the law is sometimes a wet blanket, but sometimes a shield. Mostly, I learned that you can be pushed into being petty and still choose to stop when the point has been made. You don't always have to answer every shout with another shout. Sometimes you answer smart.